Mayor's here, and we were late for the
Gee, I feel like you're here sitting there with a stopwatch saying, where are you? No, just trying to shoehorn everything into a single day.
Yeah, so did you get stuck in traffic coming home? Or?
Well, last night, it took 3 hours to get back from Cambridge. And
too bad we didn't have a train.
Yeah, that's what I said. Yeah. But no, I was in Cambridge presenting at an event hosted by the National League of Cities on solutions to our very encompassing opioid problem. There were 5 other cities represented, all from different parts of the country. So New Bedford was selected as one to be featured because we do a good job at dealing with the issue and from every angle in terms of prevention and law enforcement response, Narcan response, emergency response to our outreach programs, all of it. And so it was really a session with the National League of Cities with some major foundations like the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation and people from higher education to talk about, figuring out how to do it better. And so all the cities that were involved, like Knoxville, Tennessee, and Madison, Wisconsin, those are 2, Manchester, New Hampshire. And so we all just got in the room and brainstormed it. And we did a presentation. The New Bedford team, which included Christina Connolly, the city's chief operating officer, the chief of police, Joe Cadero, Damone Chaplin, our health director, and Stephanie Sloan, who's in charge of grants in the health department. And we made a presentation to the rest of the group to share our efforts and to see how we can do things better. So it's a long way of saying we're up there doing this stuff, getting some ideas, and with the prospect of some major grant funding to come along with that from some of the big funders that were there. So
I was going to ask you about that. Any money attached to this? I mean, any interest to squeeze a few bucks out of it?
So it's not definitive yet, but this is and the rest of the team stayed over that last night. They're there today all day, and I couldn't be there myself the whole time.
You had to be here.
Correct, yeah. But they're working it, and there's going to be more money available to implement some of the things that we discussed.
So did you pick up any tips from any of the other communities?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we're trying to do is the big challenge for us is to help us gather better data about what types of treatment works, what's the profile of people that might use, including children, and what kind of medications work best. So just to give you an example, I mean, this might also sound very intuitive, but the data tends to back it up, and that's this: if someone has an overdose, the people who have already had an overdose are by far the most likely to have another one, right? So it kind of stands to reasons, but it does inform practices in the sense that if we can arrange our programs in a way that get to those people right away, get them into appropriate treatment services right after they've had that overdose and they've gotten their Narcan, they've recovered momentarily, then we stand a great chance of reducing overdose deaths in the long run. So it's stuff like that. It's profiling children who have, and that profiling may not be the right word, but determining the characteristics of children who, through childhood trauma or for some other reason may be prone to using at some point, and intervening with the right kinds of programs to make sure that they're making the right choices in their lives. So it's that if you have good data around that, then you can make good decisions. And given that we don't have an endless amount of money to spend, if you know where you should be targeting your money, you can get more out of it and save more lives.
I got a great idea. How about if we put like cobblestones out there so that we can discourage these drug addicts from standing on the streets?
I'm giving you a serious discussion.
Did you share that idea with Marty Walsh? I mean, I got a picture sent to me the other day of.
I don't know. I've never talked to him about.
Our cobblestones are better, by the way, than theirs.
Oh yeah,
they've got them at Park and Beacon Street now, but they're only raised up a little bit. I mean, ours are like mother cobblestones. I mean, they're medieval according to several people in the community.
Yeah, no, I've heard that.
Yeah.
Now they're like, if people looked around, they'd see these types of structures in lots of cities.
So I think
I've shown you one. I think I showed you one that I personally saw in New York, in Queens, actually, back in November, and it had slates that were. In fact, I'll show it to you on my phone as we speak, Barry. But
maybe you can send it to me, and we can put it up on the website or something, so people can see it.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. But in any event, there's other cities that are doing it, and as I told you last week, the response that we're getting has been overwhelmingly positive. Yeah, there are a few city councilors and some others who are criticizing it, but when you get right down to it, and someone asked. Buttonholed me last night as I was getting out of City Hall about it, and I just said to the person, I said, you know what? The reason we're doing it is to keep people safe, right? They're standing on a state highway or right next to a state highway with cars traveling at high rates of speed right by them, and they're stepping into the roadway to get money. That's not a safe. Right. That's not safe behavior, and sooner or later somebody's going to get whacked by a car, and then people will say, City Hall, why didn't you do something about it? So I'm not going to wait for that to happen.
Now, was this
so here's the picture.
So
unfortunately, with the limitations of radio, not everybody can see that. But you can see that was a median. I took that picture
and that's in New York?
Yeah, that's in Queens.
In Queens,
as you can see.
Can you send that over to John, and John can send it to me? I'm going to put that up on the website so folks can see that.
So that's so I took that picture because I noticed it, and I thought, well, of course, you can, as people will, when you get it up on the website, people will notice this. But
those make our cobblestones look like totally civilized, right?
Yeah, and as you can tell, there's raised up so much that garbage is getting caught in them, and so anyway.
Yeah. So did anybody even mention this at all yesterday? I mean, because they're linked. The subjects are linked. We've got people that are hooked up on this opioid deal that are homeless or that are out there.
I think there's a consensus among the cities that were there, and there are cities, like Manchester, New Hampshire, and there's the mayor of Huntington, West Virginia, was there, which is a fairly small city, but they've seen far more in the way of opioids than we have, as it turns out. But all the cities will say, most of the homeless have some sort of addiction, and most of the people who are panhandling, who aren't all homeless, have most of them have an addiction issue. Right. So, and I think that's freely acknowledged by folks.
So it's I find this all very ironic, kind of funny, and even insulting in some ways here. I don't agree with you on everything, but I thought this was.
What do you mean you
idea.
don't?
Well, most stuff, but and the listeners seem to back you very much on this, and I've had people gleefully calling me and telling me since these stones went in, I haven't seen anybody standing on that median strip, which is good. Yeah. So. But, you're sitting here telling us about an opioid summit that you went to yesterday and looking for ways to get more money and learning about the problem. And yet you're being called inhumane and malicious in dealing with these people. Senator Montigny told Channel 4 that it's a silly way to deal with the issue of panhandlers. He even referred to the cobblestones as stupid and thoughtless. So, I mean, what do you think about when you hear that kind of feedback from people like Senator Montigny, who really could have helped us with this problem? He's our state senator. That's the state highway. He could have done something.
So there are public officials who, who can make comments for the media and let that stand. I'm a mayor. I have to act. I'm not a legislator, and people can take their positions, however thoughtful or not so they are, but I've actually have to solve things. So we've been trying to solve the problem of people walking along a state highway and putting themselves and motorists in danger for a while, and we've tried a number of steps over the last couple of years that are far less obtrusive than cobblestones. We've sent outreach workers out to them, and we'll continue to do that to get those people into services. We asked the state whether we could put Jersey barriers in that particular spot. The state said no, it might obstruct sight lines of drivers. Okay, so instead we put plants down, right, to see if that would impede the conduct and keep people safe. Those plants were promptly trampled on, and they all died within a couple of months. So, this was not putting cobblestones down there in the way that we did was not a first resort. It's a measured response in light of all the failing of all the other things that we've tried. And by the way, we've on this program and in many other settings, I've implored people to support homeless providers as well as addiction service providers through other means. Go on their websites, send them a donation, write a check, send it in the mail, but don't hand out money to people who are, and more likely than not, are going to go down the street and buy some booze or buy some drugs. So, we've tried all these other things, and we're not going to be doing this at every intersection. We'll do it in places where we think public safety calls for it. And it's not just the safety of the public generally, it's more specifically the safety of the motorists and the people who are actually engaged in the panhandling. We want to keep them safe, and that's why we did this.
So Councilor Abreu, I believe it was on the air with Ken on Saturday, and even Councilor Dunn have suggested, and people who oppose this whole thing, what they're suggesting, to some degree at least, is that all you're doing is moving the problem. If they can't stand on this median strip, they're going to move down. And Councilor Abreu expressed the concern that so next they're going to be at the state pier, and people coming off the C Street are going to have to deal with them. So you're just simply going to move it from one spot to another. Is there any reason?
If we're moving, so there may be some moving of the problem, yeah, but we'd like for it to be moved away from a place where there are high speed cars going by. This is a public safety issue, and so if they move to a spot where cars are not, are traveling 10 miles an hour as opposed to, or just doing it on the sidewalk, well, again, not great behavior for them. We want to see them stop that. It's not good for them, for their own lives, but, we'll at least stem the more immediate problem of people walking into a state highway.
So just finally on this topic, Councilor Gomes introduced a piece in the City Council that I guess gets sent off to Public Safety Committee, which he chairs, really looking for more money to do this at more intersections. Is that doable? Is there a way to divert money?
Yeah, I think the city can afford to do it in some other places, but again, it's going to be, those decisions will be made based on public safety needs. If we think that people are in danger and there's no other way to keep them from harm's way, then that's a measure that we will have available and we can implement.
All right, budget. You introduced your budget last night.
I did indeed.
To the City Council, and how much is
after I sped back from 3 hours. It was long enough that I sat in traffic in so many places that I had in my car a draft of the speech that I actually.
Well, that's what I said. You might have heard me on the way in. I said you probably wrote a speech on the way back.
I didn't write it, but I definitely, when I was stuck in traffic, frozen in place, I did do a little bit of revising, a little bit of editing. It does. The budget presentations, I will admit, start to sound a little like Groundhog Day, right? Money is tight, and it is, and it's tight for the same reasons that have been that we've been facing for a few years now. It's pensions and health care, primarily charter schools as well. Those are the big three drivers, all of which have in common that we have the fact that we have little control over them, and so. We continue to struggle, and it stands to pay our bills, right? And that stands in stark contrast to the overall progress of the city. People are feeling good about where the city is going, but the finances, you would think that the money, that the city would be a little more flush than it is, and it's not. And so, I'm concerned that when the national economy turns down and state aid drops as well and things get tighter, that, we'll have some really difficult decisions to make. We've been very careful about spending because we don't want, the city to be in a position, whether it's a year from now, 5 years from now, or whenever, to have to be in crisis mode and start cutting basic services and putting the city on a very precarious footing. So, we're trying to do the things that the city needs to do before it starts raining, right? There's the old adage, you fix the roof before it starts raining. That's the approach that we've been taking. So we add very little to the budget. I mean, we add in a couple of areas that I think are needed to save the city money. So like one of them, I mean, call me crazy, but, I've asked the council to add one lawyer, right, to the legal staff. And you might say, well, why on earth are you adding lawyers? Nobody likes lawyers. Well, here's the thing. A city that has the capacity to provide sound legal advice is a city that's not getting sued, right? And if it's not getting sued, it's saving money in the long run. Same thing with the planning department. I've asked for another employee in planning. Now, mind you, I'm asking for, these 2 employees in a city, put aside the school system, in a city government of over 900 employees, right? So 1 or 2 employees is what we're talking about. But if you have some more capacity in the planning department, it can move development projects along, and including the sale of certain marketable city-owned properties, that all of which can add to the tax base, right? More money can come in without imposing on existing taxpayers. The one exception to those additions, so it's a very modest proposal, and look, the council, we'll have a discussion over those things. The other things in the budget, by and large, are things that we have to do, right? Things as mundane as the extension of software licenses. Stuff like that. In a hundreds of millions of dollars in budget, it's very small. The one exception to all of that is what we're trying to do, though it's very difficult, in the fire department, and that is to continue to bring firefighters onto the city payroll. If you remember, back in 2011, the city got a very large so-called SAFER grant from the federal government to keep 70 firefighters on the force. And we knew, and that would only last 2 years. And so the question was, well, then what? And so what we've tried to do is we've applied for more SAFER grants. We got 2 more after that for smaller numbers of firefighters. And in the meantime, we've moved them onto the city payroll gradually. We're still trying to do that now, but it's become very, very difficult. The SAFER program has changed. It's not likely that we would get a 4th grant. I think we're one of only a handful of cities around the country that's gotten 3 successive grants. And the terms of the program have changed, and it's not nearly as generous as it used to be. So we're looking at bringing on more firefighters onto the city payroll, but that's expensive. It's really expensive, and so of all the things on the budget, that's like the big thing this year.
How many firefighters do we have, and what would you consider to be a full complement?
Well, we have now, if we get the number fluctuates somewhere between 210 and 220. I can't remember exactly what it is right this second, but it's roughly a little over 210. And I think there is a variety of opinions of how many firefighters we need overall. Some say, we need, around 210. If you look at Fall River, which has a bigger land area than us, but, is a similarly sized city, they have, I think, about 180 firefighters. So, it's hard to know exactly what it is. In a perfect world, we'd have plenty of funding. It could staff it up very robustly. But we've been good in the sense that the fire department has started to shift more of its attention into risk management and doing more prevention. We have a better hand. We have more data now, so we have a better sense of where the fires are occurring and what types of housing, whether it's owner occupied or non-owner occupied, and which particular streets and so forth. So we have a sense of where the risks lie, but and we'll have to continue to do that as time goes on. But it's times are tight. I mean, there are things like, some fire departments have gone to 3 men to a piece, through to an engine, to a ladder. We're at 4. In Fall River, it's 3 men to a piece. So, these are all things that we're going to be talking about over, whatever happens with the budget over the next couple of years, because, and it's not just the fire department, every department of city government has to look for ways to tighten up. But that's the business we're in right now. And, my job is to make sure that we're providing very good services to our residents, that we're not soaking taxpayers, and that the city is continuing to invest back into the city. And
where are we at with our contract with the firefighters?
It has we've finalized one. It was several months back, and so I think there's 1 year left on that contract. The police contract expires at the end of June, but I'm pretty sure we have 1 year left, because the firefighter contract was 3 years. The police contract was 2.
So the negotiations obviously are going on with the police department, with the police union.
Yeah, I think we're sort of on pause because we just finished the contract, even though the contract.
Right.
In fact, I don't even think I've actually signed the thing yet. It's that new, and it's about to expire again. This was with the police department. It was an exercise in just getting it done and catching up. But we're going to be back negotiating with them soon enough. But I think we had a good discussion with the police department, and we'll pick up the next round of contract discussions pretty soon.
And teachers, where are they at? I mean, all the major unions.
I think the teachers have 1 more year left on theirs. Yeah.
Now the healthcare issue. This is something that you've been after the council for a while to consider changes in the healthcare. It got shipped off to limbo land in the council somewhere, and doesn't appear as though it's going to see the light of day anytime soon.
Yeah, I think it's okay. I mean, it'd be better if it were taken up before the budget, but it doesn't have to be. The healthcare plans, the city's healthcare plans operate on a calendar year as opposed to a fiscal year basis. So, the city council could take it up tomorrow, but we couldn't put anything into effect until after January 1st. So, but it does. But you're right. It can't be. The city council can't punt on it indefinitely. Healthcare costs are growing. We've proposed, as we've discussed before on the program, the proposal that I have before the council, which is to adopt so-called municipal healthcare reform, Section 21 of that statute, that would allow the city to go to an arbitrator if it couldn't come to terms with the public employee unions over the details of their health plans, of employee health plans. So look, because healthcare is growing, and people have seen it in the private sector as well. It's if you don't get a hold of that, then you're going to be in trouble. It'll tend to crowd out all the other things that we'd like to be doing as a city, and virtually every city in southern Bristol County has done it. Fall River has done it. Dartmouth, all the surrounding communities here in Fairhaven, and New Bedford and Westport haven't. And we're really the only two, and we really have to give it a lot of thought, because we don't want to put ourselves in a position where we're eliminating services just to pay our health care bills.
Congressman Keating indicated in a piece in the paper today, and again this morning with Chris McCarthy on the air on his weekly appearance, that so you're not the only one that gets a weekly appearance. Congressman Keating gets one too. Yeah. So, and he gets to park in the parking spot right on here.
Which parking spot?
Well, I guess there isn't a parking spot, is there? Oh, well.
Wait a minute.
Sounded good.
Let me move my car.
In any event, the congressman is suggesting an end may be near to the restrictions on ground fishing, right? Are you optimistic?
Well, it will. They still will have to go through a rulemaking procedure, which takes some time, and there are specific there's a specific timetable for any federal rulemaking. It has to get posted in the federal register and go through a public comment process. So it's not like this is going to happen. I didn't hear the interview, but this isn't going to happen next week. So, but it is moving along, fair to say, it's moving along in part, I think, in part because of the immediacy of the related civil suit against Carlos Rafael. There are some deadlines in that case that I think are going to force a resolution of the entire case. So we'll continue to press the matter with NOAA, but I don't think people should be under the illusion that this is going to happen in the next few days or the next week or so. That they have to go through a formal rulemaking process, which inevitably will take several weeks.
So Senator Warren's going to be in town on Saturday. Did he get the flyer?
She is. Yeah, I have a meeting with her. Yeah, I know she's appearing in Voc Tech for a public town meeting. Yeah. I won't be at that, but I'm going to be meeting with her separately about fishing issues, about the sector, about Sector 9 and Sector 7, and meeting with her about the interaction of the fishing industry and the offshore wind industry, so that what I've tried to do is, as you and I have talked before, I've been pushing the idea that offshore, we really want offshore wind to succeed, and we want New Bedford to be in the thick of it, but it's got to be done the right way, and the right way here in New Bedford is to make sure that our fishing industry isn't compromised by the construction of windmills in the wrong places. So, and I think we've been making some progress with the federal delegation, because we do need to have their voices heard on this, and so I'm going to be meeting with her on Saturday to follow up about that.
Before or after the town meeting?
What time's the town meeting?
I think it's 11.
I think right. So I think right before. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. There, or are you going to meet at
No,
City
I think
Hall?
we're meeting. I think we might be meeting at the Wharfinger building. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Let me
You're asking me about my schedule 2 days out. I can't even know.
John, I didn't see John.
All I know that far out is I know I'm going to brush my teeth.
John's saying, I don't know when the hell you mean.
I know I'm going to brush my teeth in the morning, and that's about all I can guarantee.
Almost time to start Christmas shopping, right? Let me take the break. We'll come back for your calls with the mayor next. 508-9960-500. Stay with us. You're listening to 1420 WBSM. Alrighty, welcome back to Midweek with the Mayor, the Thursday edition, and last week it was the Friday edition. How about we do Tuesday next week?
We're a moving target, Barry.
And don't say we don't accommodate you, right? Because
you'll never hear me say that. No.
All right, that's good. Well, we try hard anyway. 508-996-0500. Let's get to the phone calls. Thank you for waiting. You're first this hour on WBSM. Hello, yeah, go ahead.
Hi, Mayor Mitchell.
Hi.
I am calling for information. Forgive me, I'm a little nervous.
No, that's okay.
All right. I've been dealing with a situation. I've been homeless since last June.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm a professional woman who's worked all my life. I'm in a wheelchair. I'm on oxygen. And fortunately, I was able to get a hotel room. And at the time, they weren't doing the 28-day thing. Now they are.
Mm-hmm.
And I have like maybe 2 weeks left here, and then I was wondering if you could tell me where I'll be able to plug in my wheelchair and oxygen in the middle of the night, because I have nowhere to go.
Well, let's figure it out with you. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to call the mayor's office, and we will make sure that in light of the information you give us, we can get you the help you need. So let me give you the number. It's 508-979-1410, and you can talk to Sylvia, and she'll make sure that we get people to reach out to you so that you get what you need. But I'm sorry you're going through this, and but we'll whatever's available for you, we'll make sure that it gets it goes your way. Okay.
Yeah, I'm in the gray. I'm in the gray area. I make too much money for. What's the word I want? Too much money for assistance.
Yep.
But not enough money for the private housing, because private housing wants you to make 3 times what the rent is.
Yep. No, that happens to people. Yep.
All right. Did you get that phone number the mayor gave out?
Yes, I wrote that. I thank you so much.
All right, give us Sylvia a call, and we'll see what we can do. 508-996-0500. You're up next with Mayor Mitchell. Go ahead.
Good afternoon,
Hi.
Mayor Mitchell and Barry.
Hi.
I called Sylvia earlier in the week, and I had told her about a public safety issue in front of my house at 300 Harwich Street.
Mm-hmm.
There's a sidewalk which is approximately 4 to 5 inches sticking out of the ground. And I had called about 2 years ago, and the Department of Infrastructure came and spray painted it orange. The orange paint has faded. I had called again later. They came by and spray painted it pink. The pink paint has faded. I was wondering, how long do we have to wait until I can get that particular sidewalks fixed? Because
now they're going to come paint it green.
Yeah, that'll fade. Well, the problem is.
But is there a color that you prefer? What color would you like? Chartreuse, maybe?
Well, to match my car.
I'm glad. So I'm glad you have a sense of humor about it, and I understand because you've been patient, and so I don't know the story. I have a faint recollection you're calling about this too.
Yeah,
and
I've called before.
Yeah, so 300 Harwich Street, we'll get someone to look at it. I'll make sure that they report back to me. It may be more complicated than it appears, but either way, we'll make sure you get an answer on that, okay?
I'd appreciate it, because already an elderly lady has fallen there, and we do have children from the Mandan across the street. They can, you actually have to step up to walk over the area. I don't want them in the street. Causing motorists to have difficulty not preventing a horrible accident because the kids have to step into the street.
Yep.
All right, appreciate your call very much. They'll take care of that. 508-996-0500. You are up next on WBSM with the mayor. Go ahead.
Hey, good afternoon, Mayor.
Hey.
Good afternoon. The reason I'm calling is I usually work night shift. I just got up, actually. First, I'd like to congratulate the mayor on the police work that's been going around. As I work nights, I see a lot of the action, and I see the police officers out there, and it looks like the chief and the mayor had doubled the police. They're everywhere now, and that's great. That's awesome.
Yeah, they're definitely hustling these days. There's no doubt about it.
I mean, I do security, but I know a lot of police officers. But I tell you one thing: since Chief Cordero came in, you can see a big difference. I mean, he was the right man for the job, and I really like the guy. He's a great person.
Yep, he's
You
really
as
good.
well, Mayor. You're doing a great job. These roads are looking beautiful. I mean, I love going by Route 18 now and seeing the construction, the improvements. We look good. We're looking good. But
Thank you.
I do have a big concern.
Yep.
The potholes.
Yep.
I mean, I got a brand new vehicle, and it's less than a year, and now he had to send it to the shop. It's terrible. I mean, some of these potholes are really, really bad. I mean, if you could send a crew just to patch it up, these major ones, and assess the streets a little bit, that would be appreciated because the potholes are really bad.
So let me say a couple of things. So no, it's you're not going to get any argument from me. The condition of the roads in the city, although they're not as bad as other cities in the Northeast, are not good enough. They're not even close. And if you see a pothole that you think needs to be addressed promptly because it's deep or it's just more than just a little crack in the pavement, you just call it in to DPI. Or you can use the C-Click Fix app if that's what you prefer. Either way, let us know about it. But the other thing is, so the streets are, as we've talked about many times before, the streets are in tough condition, and they're in a tough condition because the city didn't have a program in place to invest in the streets, and we've relied entirely over the years on state money, and that's never going to be enough. And so in the last 2 years, we've begun a road program in which the city actually puts in its own money, and that is going to greatly increase the rate of repair in the roadways. But it's going to take, I would be fooling you if I said anything different than this. It's going to take time. It took a long time for our roads to fall into the level of disrepair that we see now. It's going to take a little bit of time to get them back in order, but we will get them back in order. And if the city commits, if city government commits over the long term, over mayoral administrations to maintain a reinvestment program, the roads have to be funded consistently, reliably, in order for it all to be the way that we all expect it to be.
All right, going to take a quick break. We'll come back, and we'll have a couple more minutes with the mayor, so stay with us. You're listening to 1420 WBSM. All right, we are back. It's about 3 minutes before the top of the hour. Before we get to another call, I just wanted to ask you about the Sergeant Sean Gannon Memorial Playground at Campbell School. What's up with that?
Yeah, so, the idea came from two different sources. The PTO had thought of it at one point, right after Sean was killed, and it came to me sort of independently as I sat in his funeral. And I thought, well, we've got to find some way to honor him. And then I recalled that his parents live on Stevenson Street, right next to the Campbell School, where a playground was being planned. And so I proposed to the school committee earlier this week that the playground be named in his honor. And the full school, the facilities committee voted it out earlier this week, and it'll go before the full school committee on Monday. But look, I mean, this is a guy that we want our kids to emulate. It's just a person who was dedicated to public service, had always wanted to become a police officer, became one, was really good at it, and comes from a great family, and it's just the whole thing is just a horrible situation. So it's my hope that in naming the playground after him, the kids will have, somebody to say, say that's a guy who should have a playground named after himself. It's the kind of what he represented is what we want our kids to emulate. And I also hope that because it's so visible to his parents, that they at least can gain some comfort and pride in having it there as well.
So we're talking about a plaque or something like that, something that can be done fairly quickly?
Well, we've got to raise money for the playground, so I would say everybody out there who wants to raise money.
Oh, the playground hasn't been built yet.
It has not been built yet.
Oh, I see. Building a playground in his honor. I thought you were talking about just naming an existing playground.
No. There isn't a playground there at Campbell School, so we're going to be building a playground there with the help of the PTO, and so we need to raise money for it. And it's going to be a great playground. We've already had a number of discussions around it. The PTO is doing a really good job pulling it together, and we want this great playground to be named after this great man.
Yeah, okay, I misunderstood. That's great. Mother's Day on Sunday. I'm sure
Indeed.
you want to wish all the mothers happy Mother's Day.
I wish my mother and all the mothers out there and Annie, the missus, the mother of my kids, a wonderful Mother's Day. It's well deserved. I hope we get good weather for Mother's Day, but I hope that everybody gets to spend a little bit of family time. Treating mother the right way, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's her day.
So what are you doing for mom? You taking her out or what?
I don't know, Barry. I don't plan that far ahead.
I know you don't.
You're quizzing me on what I was doing on Saturday.
You'll be shopping at CVS on for Saturday
That's probably
night.
right.
Thanks, Mary. We'll see you next Wednesday.
Thanks, Barry.
All right, we got to get out of here. News is next. Howie Carr coming up after the news. We're back tomorrow for the Friday edition. Chief Financial Officer for the City of New Bedford, Harry Sky, is with us tomorrow. We're going to talk about the budget. See you then. Howie Carr's next.